Hi, my name is Dmitry. I'm the founder and CEO of ThoughtWide, which is New Zealand's first brain sensing technology startup. This is a company that I started with a couple of people several years ago to develop thought-controlled technology specifically for people with profound disabilities. And today I'm going to talk about what brain sensing technology is, how it works, why is it important already, where it is going in the future, and how it could potentially be applied in some of the practices that you follow in your work. I started ThoughtWide because I have a younger cousin who's profoundly disabled. So he's completely locked in and unable to communicate, but at the same time he has a fully functioning mind. And several years ago I've come across the technology that allowed to read brain signals and turn them into useful actions, and that's where idea for our startup and for our product came about. So we came together with a couple of other people and started working on building this thought-controlled communication system. In general, the way we interact with technology has stayed pretty much the same for the several past decades, which is typically keyboard and a mouse and very likely a touchscreen, but now we're seeing a whole lot of other new ways that we can interact, and now we're progressing further into using other ways in which we interact already between ourselves, like gestures, facial expressions, and all of that comes from our brains. Inside of our brain we have billions of neurons, and the way we work as humans is through those neurons communicating with each other, and we can pick up on that activity using the different kinds of technology. This has been done for a lot of years in the medical setting, but now as the technology has advanced, it's becoming available to a wider audience. So traditionally what we saw was complicated images and readings captured with complicated equipment, such as EEG nets. It comprises of dozens of electrodes that require a skilled technician to put on, and then a skilled professional to interpret the readings that they capture. Whereas now we have devices like these. So this is one of the simplest brain reading devices. It's got a couple of electrodes that go on the person's head and allow us to read brain activity in real time and then present it in such a way that we understand and also use it for a variety of purposes. With the devices like these, we can do a variety of things, and very broadly we break it up into three big categories. The first one is monitoring, and that's really to understand what is happening in a person's brain. So that kind of comes from the traditional background of this technology. So whether it's done in a medical setting or whether it's just for research purposes, so really it's just using a device, collecting the information about the brain and then analyzing it in some way. The second category is what we call neurofeedback, and that's taking this monitoring and presenting the results of that monitoring in real time to the person who's being observed. So it could be me wearing the device and seeing what the device is reading on the screen presented to me for a variety of purposes. For example, that I can change what my brain is doing to improve my focus, or potentially to calm down and get ready to sleep. So it's really taking this information and providing feedback to the person so they can change their behavior in real time. And then the third category, which is probably the most exciting, is what we call control applications or interfacing application. That's where we use this technology to allow a person to control things outside of them using their brainwaves or their thoughts. So that could be controlling an application on a computer or a mobile device. It could be controlling a robot or other kind of device out there, and just really kind of looking at almost real-world examples of telekinesis and telepathy. So to get started, first off, we need a device that would go on a person's head to actually capture the brain activity and make use of it. There are now probably about a dozen devices available on the market. So the devices that we have present today are these two. So one is called a Selitskiy Mindwave, and that's one of the very first low-cost, commercially available devices that came out. It is very simple compared to other devices. It has a single electrode that reads the brain activity, and it goes on the person's forehead, like so. And then it communicates wirelessly via Bluetooth to your computer or your mobile device. The second device that we have is from a company called Macrotellect, and it's called BrainLink. And it's very, very similar to the Selitskiy. Again, it has a couple of electrodes that go on a person's forehead. And it again connects wirelessly to your device and transmits the data. And so we'll be going through the demos with these devices, but there are other kinds of devices available as well. The common aspect to all of these devices is that they are much easier to use than the traditional EEG nets, and they deal with a variety of issues that those traditional high-cost devices had, like dealing with hair and so on. They don't require scalp preparation of any kind, so it's really accessible to anyone outside of the professional or medical fields. So now that we know what we need to get started in terms of devices, let's look at some of the applications that already exist. The first category where the applications were presented with these low-cost devices was around entertainment and recreation. So there are a couple of products built around that technology, like for example the Nico cat ears. And really all that is combination of this Selitskiy device with little toy cat ears that move on a person's head depending on their mental state. So if they're alert, the ears perk up. If they get calm and sleepy, then the ears fall down, which is an interesting way of illustrating a person's mental state through a physical device. A couple of other examples that we had was one, a remote controlled helicopter, again partially driven through a device like this. So you use your level of concentration or attention to make the helicopter rise through the air, and then use your mobile device to steer it in different ways. So that was an interesting example of combining different ways of interacting with technology to achieve an outcome. There are quite a few games available that make use of this technology. Some of them are fully developed games in 3D environments, and some of them are more casual mobile games, but there's definitely choice as well as room for the industry to improve. And then finally, one of my favorite examples is a brain-controlled beer tap. So this was done by one of the other companies that eventually developed their own headset, the Muse. So they, for a number of conferences, they've built this beer tap which you controlled with your brain. So you essentially wished for a beer and you got a drink. So one of the big areas here is around mindfulness practices and overall helping people to improve their mental health and brain fitness. So examples here are a product like the Muse, which is another headset, and the application that comes with it that helps people practice mindfulness techniques, which we've seen applied in a variety of contexts. There's even a program that was run by the Ministry of Health together with the Ministry of Education in New Zealand, where they ran mindfulness lessons in several schools. So this is an example where this technology can contribute to such practice. The neurofeedback techniques are even used as therapies, for example, to help address issues with ADHD, for example. So instead of using medication, there are now accepted practices where neurofeedback applications are used to teach students kids and adults how to improve their focus and deal with distractions through the use of this technology, where essentially they're shown what focus is like and what distraction is like, and how to transition from one state to another, up to a decision in the UK where NHS in the UK diverted over £1 million in funding from medication-based therapies to neurofeedback-based therapies. And then another example that we've got here is more of a creative and an accessibility example, where a group of musicians with profound disabilities came together and put together a piece of music using this technology. So those musicians had a variety of disabilities, but all of them were essentially locked in, and one of them couldn't even verbally communicate. But by use of this technology, they controlled a number of electronic instruments to compose music, which was quite incredible. So now that we've covered where the technology is today, let's have a look at some of the examples where this sort of technology is moving and what the real potential of the brain sensing technology is. So the first example that we've got is a person with a severe motor disability who's locked in, controlling a robotic arm as if it was her own arm. I have to say that in this particular example, this outcome is being achieved with what we call invasive technology. So this is not a device as simple as this that you just put on a person's head. In this example, the person actually has an implant surgically inserted into her brain to collect information from a very specific area of the brain. But nonetheless, it shows the potential of what we can achieve. And so here, over time, she's learned how to control this robotic arm, if it was her own, to such extent that she could feed herself, get a drink, and so on, just by thinking about it, really, as if it was, controlling her own arm. Robotic legs that allow a person who's otherwise unable to walk to actually move around using this exoskeleton, again, just by thinking about it. Another interesting fact about these projects is that the robotic legs are actually made in New Zealand by a company called Rex. So there's another interesting New Zealand connection to this example. And then getting into really futuristic applications and examples of research. So first of all is reconstruction of visual images from brain signals. So this is essentially looking at brain activity and reconstructing what the person is imagining or seeing. So in this particular example, a person or a group of people were presented with a clip of a bird flying through the sky and a few others, and then they were asked to recall those images while their brains were scanned in an MRI machine. And then using the data that was collected, images were reconstructed that sort of vaguely resemble what those people saw. Again, at this stage, it's sort of an impressionist painting rather than the actual image, but it shows, again, the potential of where we can get to. And then again, really this particular research is actually from 2011, so very likely that the technology has moved on since then. And then a similar example was done with reconstructing sound from brain data as well. So again, similarly, this was about trying to understand and extract sound information out of a person's brain. So they were asked to think about particular sounds, and again, that was partially reconstructed from brain signals. And then the final example is sort of bringing all of this together and really pushing the envelope into the sci-fi realm, is direct brain-to-brain communication. So again, this has been achieved in labs where one person had their brain activity captured in real time using technology like this, on a more sophisticated level again. And then there was another person sitting in a different room, in some cases even in a different country, who had a brain stimulator attached to them, and so the signals from one person were transmitted to the other one in such a way that in the first example, the person wearing the stimulator perceived a flash of light when the person who was being observed sent a command. So that was the most basic way the two communicated, and then a year later the same group of researchers actually had these people play a simple game similar to Pong, just using their brains again. So that's kind of really where we're going in terms of the very futuristic application of almost, telepathy or technology assisted telepathy.